Hey folks, welcome back to another Dice Tower preview. I'm Mark, and today we're taking a look at Forges of Ravenshire, which is brought to you by VA Games. It's for 1 to 4 players, ages 12 and up, and games generally run about 50 to 100 minutes. Grab a hammer and some steel. It's time to forge. The Blacksmiths Guild of Ravenshire is in need of a new Forgemaster. You and your fellow smiths are competing to see who can make the most money and become that new Forgemaster. Forges of Ravenshire takes place over 4 rounds of play. The blacksmith with the most money wins. You earn money primarily from completing contracts, but also by increasing your reputation, earning titles, running your guilds, and obtaining gold in market exchanges. And completing those contracts requires resources, which you'll gain by placing and retrieving dice, running your guilds, and operating your forge. To obtain the more lucrative contracts, though, you'll need to increase your reputation and gather more resources, including mystics. So, do you have what it takes to be the new Forgemaster of Ravenshire? Join me and let's take a closer look. So, this game is all about creating different types of weapons and armor using these contracts in order to gain gold. Gold is going to be your victory points in the game, but you have some interesting choices with gold. You're going to have to be spending it as well as earning it throughout the course of the game in order to do the various things you need to do to get the right resources, to generate what you need to in your engines that you build on your player board or your forge, and just get the right number of ingredients to complete these contracts. Now, the level 1s you're going to be able to start off with, and as you put a finish, yes, you can put finishes on the different contracts or weapons and armor that you create. You can have a standard finish. They've got a mithril finish, which is fantastic because mithril will allow you to move up the reputation track. And the reputation track is all about getting to that next level of the different types of contracts. So you've got level 2 and level 3. Again, level 3 is like legendary. So you need to move up this track in order to be able to access those higher level contracts. But along the way, you got to make some tough choices about which resources you're going after, how you collect them, what you build in your engine, and how you best manage your forge. And it's important to note that the reputation track is not just about contracts. However, it is a very important part of it. But you will get a number of victory points or gold at the end of the game, depending on where you're placed, and there are resources to be gathered as well. Also, there are title cards. These are kind of like gold cards through the course of the game. When you complete one of these, like having a number of legendary cards or contracts completed, then you can achieve that goal. And potentially, all players on the same turn could complete that goal. So you have to be mindful about what other players are doing, but keep an eye on these because there is a nice boost in your victory point total. So the main board is where you'll be placing dice and gathering resources, and then taking dice and gathering more resources, and placing the taken dice into one of your columns for your guilds and running that engine. All the things you placed there, or maybe just to start the game, the standard, you'll be able to activate and get even potentially more resources, depending on how you put together your engine for generating. And then you need to hold on to that dice, that number, because it's going to be used again in your forge. So your main player board is your forge and where your guilds are, where you completed contracts are going to be placed. The finish on them will be dictated by where you place them on your board and the cost and so forth. And then you have areas of your forge that you can upgrade through the course of the game and make them bigger and better. So it's a really interesting mix of how you put those resources together. Lots of decisions in this game. I really like that aspect. And each player will have their own set of cards that they'll be able to tap into. We'll take a brief look at, but there's also asymmetric abilities that you can put into play where some players might have extra dice, things like that. But these cards are optional, you don't have to play with them, but they do add another level of interest in how you play and how you augment your character, so to say, and make it the best Forgemaster moving through the game and getting the right resources for those contracts. You have several different types of resources you're going to be dealing with and trying to accumulate. So the goods, or the basic ones you're going to be using, are things like wood, things you'd expect like ore, charcoal, steel, and leather, but you have mystic ones as well. And these are probably going to be mostly used for a lot of your legendary type gear that you're going to be creating. Things like talisman, dragon scale, mithril, and the ember gem. Both of those, the mithril and the ember gem, are going to be finishes that you can complete for the contracts as well. So lots of different reasons to do that, and moving up the track obviously is one of them. Another is just getting gold or victory points. but these are the different resources, and you have to be mindful about how you mix and match and what you go after, because there's some interesting trade-offs as you move through and try to get those different types of resources. Each round of the game consists of 3 phases. You've got the gathering phase, the production phase, and the end of round phase. Now, the gathering phase is all about getting resources, really. And you have your 3 dice that will have been rolled, and based on the number value where you place it on the main board, you will get that number of resources that it shows. And then once you've done that, you'll be able to take a die from the board. And when you do that, you get more resources based on number value again, and you'll be able to place it into one of your guild columns in the purple, green, or gold based on the color of the dice. And then everything you've put into your guild column will activate. And this is really going to give you things like gold, resources, things like that that you really need in order to make the biggest and best forge and fulfill those contracts. So it's a nice way to generate resources overall so you can use them in this production phase. You'll also have the option to spin your action tokens. Now, you start the game with 1, but you get more from completing contracts, moving up the reputation track, and in the production phase. But these can be spent in various ways, from obviously getting more contracts, which you're going to want to do, and also potentially refreshing contracts. Also upgrading your forge, which is key to make it bigger, more powerful. And then finally spending those tokens to get those guild upgrade tokens. Now, you go to the guild hall and you can pick whatever you want, but you have to pay the cost labeled on the side of that token, and then you place it in the appropriate column, the colored column, getting your engine ready to get more resources, more gold, like I said before. So those tokens come into play and you can spend them during this time, and they really do give you some nice options for enhancing your forge and getting more resources, which is key. Now, once you've gone through the gathering phase and placed all your dice and taken back 3 dice, then it's time to move to the production phase. And based on the dice that you placed in your guild columns, you're going to be able to take those and move them to the production side. Now, the thing is, their color no longer matters, only the number of value. And you can place them wherever you want, but these are going to do various things, like allowing you to run your guild column again, potentially. You can get action tokens, you can get resources, you can get gold, or move up the reputation track. Depending on where you place that dice is really going to be key to what you're doing in this production phase. Now, you also have the option of placing your dice into your charcoal kiln or into the steel forge, converting resources into others, and that's really handy. But then you also have the market exchange, which shows here on this token what you can convert different resources into. A really handy way to get you the right resources you need in order to fulfill your contracts, and that's really what you're after. So any contracts that you have in hand, you can look and try to fulfill, spin the resources located on the left of the card, and then once you do, you have to decide on the finish you're going to give the card, either basic, the mithril, or ember gem, and you pay the cost for that if you do upgrade the finish, and then you gather all the bonuses from doing that, from moving up the reputation track, getting gold, and at the bottom of your contracts, you're going to gather the rewards that are called there as well. So usually you're going to get a lot of gold out of this, but there are obviously other things like action tokens, moving up the reputation track, other resources and things like that that are really going to aid you and give you more ability to effectively finish contracts in the future. The end of round phase is a bit of a cleanup phase where you're going to be checking those title cards, those little mini gold cards we talked about. If any player fulfilled one of those, that card comes out or gets flipped over and you gather the victory points or gold that it calls for. And then you're going to refresh the guild. The bottom tokens come off, new ones come in and push down and so forth. And then you're going to pass the first player marker to the next player, and finally you're going to be rolling your dice, getting ready for that next round. And so that's really how the game goes. You'll continue this way until you've reached that 4th and final round, and you'll calculate score, and whoever has the most gold will be the new Forgemaster of Ravenshire. Alright folks, just a reminder once again, this has been a Dice Tower paid preview, and everything you've seen here has been in prototype form, so keep a close eye on the campaign for any changes that still may occur. Now with that said, there's lots of intricacies, lots of things going on in this game. One of the things I didn't even really mention is that you have overtime cards. These are really one-time bonuses that you can spend at any point in the game during the gathering phase, spending your action tokens to pull off those cards, moving up the reputation track or getting gold. So they are just one-time bonuses again, but it does add as something extra you can do for sure. But what's this game really boils down to is the fact that you're trying to maneuver yourself to get the resources in the right order in order to fulfill those contracts and really move up that reputation track so you can get the better contracts and fulfill them before the end of the game to get the maximum points. And you know, I love the decision making in this and how you go after certain types of resources, placing dice, pulling dice back, activating your engine, some really interesting things going on here, and even how you upgrade your forges and so forth. So there's lots to think about as you move through the game and try to solve the puzzle of fulfilling the right contracts at the right time. But folks, ultimately, if this looks like something of interest to you, I'm sure they'd appreciate your support. So I think that's it from me, and until next time, we'll see you at the table.